What's up, everybody? It's PJ here with the SRNA Drip, and today we're going to talk about living situations in CRNA school and what I do and how it may be a little bit different from everybody else. So let's get into it. So first thing I want to touch on are the different options that you can do while living in CRNA school. And of course, the more probably traditional and common thing is to get an apartment. So you find an apartment, especially if you have to relocate for school. You find an apartment, you move in, boom, start school. You can also choose to stay where you are if you are fortunate enough to get in a school in your local area to where you don't have to move, even better. You can also choose to move in with family. I know some people who did that just to cut costs, and also, close friends who were like, yeah, I know this is going to be a struggle for you. I got a room. Don't even worry about it. Come on. So if you have that, that's even better. So those are some of the different options that you have. You can also choose to get an Airbnb, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So yeah. Very interesting. And just to touch on some tips about finding a place, I know when I found out that I got accepted into Augusta, I pretty much started looking for places to live right away. I was about 6 months out at the time from starting school. And kind of good idea, kind of not good idea, and I'll tell you why. You definitely want to start researching early enough to where you have an idea of, what area you want to live in, how you want to live, how much you want to pay, etc. But you may run into the risk of, that might not be as feasible the closer you get to school. So the first thing you can do when trying to find a place is ask someone who is currently going to the school, or multiple people that are going to the school, or faculty, or your director. They'll have a good idea of the area and what's the area that you may want to try out, what area is somewhere you want to stay away from, and price point wise, like what is affordable in the area, what's considered affordable in the area. And if you can, I think the best thing to do is go in person. You definitely want to go in person to visit the house, the apartment, the roommate, anybody. You want to be in person. But if you can't, then a couple of things that you can do. You can reach out to the leasing office for an apartment complex and see if they're willing to do like a virtual tour maybe, or maybe even the roommate that you're thinking about maybe moving in with, and have them do a virtual tour and kind of tour where you'll be living, the area, etc. Also, see how far in advance you are able to lease an apartment or move in, because something that can happen is you get really excited and you find a place, you find the dream place, great price, great area, great proximity to school, and like I said, you're about 6 months out, and then 2 months before it's time to move, you go to check and the apartment is gone, or they don't have any available, or the price goes up. So make sure that you find out how far in advance you can hold an apartment before you move in. Next thing that's really, really important is to find how close your place that you're going to move into is to school. You want to be in close proximity. I think for me, I know I'm about 20 minutes from school, and that's highway and city miles. So, if I can take the city straight through, it's about 20 minutes. If I take the highway, it's about 20 minutes. So it's about equal. And I know a lot of my classmates are about the same, 20, 15 minutes away from school. There are some outliers that, they didn't want to uproot their family, their kids, their spouses, having to find new jobs and all of that. So they do commute. They choose to commute. And luckily, for them, they haven't had to commute too much because of coronavirus and the fact that we've only had one class in person so far these past 2 semesters. But they're willing to travel an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to get to school, to commute. And if you can do that, my hat's off to you. I can't do it. I don't like driving. 20 minutes is a good amount of time to where I feel like I can relax in the car, listen to some music, but it's not long enough to where I'm getting anxious and antsy and ready to jump out of the car while it's moving. So 20 minutes is probably the average time frame, 15 to 30. Let's do 15 to 30 minutes away from school. And also make sure that there are alternate routes to school from your house. You don't want to be in a situation where there's only kind of one way to school and one way to your house, because God forbid, you know, construction or accident or a tree falls, you end up being late to school and you don't want to do that, or you're late for a test. Lord, I pray that's not the case. But, you know, it can happen. So make sure that when you start mapping these out, you look on like Google Maps or Apple Maps and you find, you know, what are the different options I have to get to school? You know, does it change the time considerably from one route to another? So that's something else you want to think about when you're looking at proximity to school. Next, look at the price point. And I'm going to tell you this right now, everything is going to seem doable when you're excited about school, meaning you're going to, you know, start looking for places to find, to live, and you say, you know, they'll tell you, oh, the price is $1,200, and you know your budget was $900, and you'll say, oh, okay, well, you know, that's probably doable because I can just not spend this here or not go out as much or whatever the case may be. Don't do that. Try to stick to your budget, whatever you mapped out as your budget, stick to it. Don't try to elevate too much from that, because once the tough gets going, that extra $200, $300 is going to come in handy. So make sure you try to stick to your price point as close as possible. And what you can do is you can map out how much you're going to be spending a semester once you know how much you'll get back from your refund check. And if you're a person that is choosing not to work during school, and you know you have some money saved, but you're primarily going to be living off of your refund check, then once you find out that number, you should compare it to how much money you'll be spending in rent a semester. Typically, a semester is 4 months. So for me, for example, I pay $600 a month for rent, and so that comes out to be about $2,400 a month, a semester. So, you know, that's nowhere near half of what I'll be getting back as a refund check. So I'm okay with that. And I probably lucked out with my living situation. We'll talk about that too. But, you know, you want to be less than half. You want to, try to be less than half of what you're going to be getting back a semester. And, you know, for your refund check, you want to spend less than half of that for rent. So you want to spend less than half of that for rent. But also keep in mind, and this is important too, that you're not compromising safety, you're not compromising peace of mind, you're not compromising sleep at night because it's noisy. You don't want to compromise those things for the sake of price. So, you know, if you have to spend an extra $100, $200 because it's a big change in the neighborhood, I think that that's a worthy compromise. Because when you get home, you are going to want to relax. You're going to want to be able to get good sleep at night. You're going to, you know, want to know that nobody's going to be trying to break into your car, you know, while you're sleeping. Or you're going to want to know that the midnight train to Georgia isn't running through while you're sleeping. So yeah, make sure that you don't compromise those things for the sake of spending a little bit of money for rent. Also be open to having a roommate, and this was something that I kind of went back and forth with all the way up until I actually found my place. And the thing about having a roommate is you have to make sure that they are compatible with your schedule, and your time frame of how you like to go about your day as far as when you're home. Like when I go to sleep, you should be pretty much winding down or getting ready to go to sleep too. I don't need you up while I'm trying to sleep. I don't need you having company while I'm trying to sleep. You know, so those are the things that really make or break a roommate. Cleanliness too. You want to make sure that you guys kind of have the same ideas about being clean. Make sure you have your own stuff, your own bathroom, because you want to make sure that if it's gonna be dirty, it's gonna be dirty by you, not anybody else. And nowadays, there are a lot of websites that, you know, make it easier to find a place to live, you know, apartmentlisting.com, and I'll list some things at the end, but utilize those resources and make sure that, you know, you really are specific about the type of place you want to have, where you want to live, and how you want to live. Okay, so now what do I personally do? What does PJ do? Because everybody's like, what do you do? Where are you living? And technically, I guess I'm kind of homeless because I don't really have anything in my name specifically, but I'm not homeless to where I'm like living in my car. So let's talk about it. So maybe back in December, right before everybody moved down for school, me and a friend of mine who's in my class, Taylor, we were talking about, you know, places to live and what we were gonna do. And one day she texted me, she was like, did you check Airbnb? And I thought about it and I was like, no, I didn't. That's actually a really good idea. So she was telling me how she found a place on Airbnb and it was a really nice area, it was a good price, and they actually came up with like a contract and an agreement to where they were roommates off of Airbnb. So I said, oh, that's actually a really good idea. So I said, well, let me hop on and find me a place to live on Airbnb. So, and of course, y'all know, I wouldn't be me if I didn't have a story or two or three. But I hop on Airbnb, I'm on my phone, I'm scrolling. And I'm like, okay, let me reach out to some people. And the way I did it was I reached out to a lot of people in the area, you know, surrounding areas of Augusta. And I said, you know, hey, my name is Patrick. I'm an ICU nurse. I'm actually going to be starting school at Augusta University for my doctorate in nurse anesthesia. And I'm looking for a place to live for my didactic portion before I start the clinicals. And it'll probably be a year and a half. Is this something that you can accommodate? So I sent that out to, you know, some prospects. And everybody was like, yeah, that sounds great. You know, just let me know what days. So at that point, it was on me to kind of find, okay, which place do I like the best? Which one is the cheapest? Which one makes more sense location-wise? And, you know, I had a lot of options to choose from. And the first option, because, you know, nothing goes right with me on the first try. So the first option, I found it was really nice. It was actually two residents that owned this house, this really big house. And, you know, I think it was about $800 a month. And, you know, I would have my own room, own bathroom, everything pretty much like sectioned off for me. And I was like, oh, this is great. Come to find out, I knew their cousins from back in Baltimore. And they were like, oh, that might be a conflict of interest. I don't know how, but I said, okay, I'm not begging anybody to stay in their house. So I said, okay, well, thank you for your time. And I left it at that. So it was back to the grind, back to the search. I found another place. And it's actually the place that I stay in now, and it was like perfect location. It was cheaper than the first place. It was closer to school than the first place. So I was like, this is too good to be true. So you know what I asked? Is it any kids in the house? She was like, no. I was like, oh, even better. So yeah, I kind of, you know, went over and I was trying to be very you know, detailed about, you know, what my plan was, and they were like, yeah, that's great. So I ended up moving in. Move in was smooth, and you know, the one thing that I like about it is, besides the location and the price, is, you know, the thing about Airbnb is usually when you get an Airbnb, especially the for like months at a time, the person is usually there, but or in between places. So a lot of times you have the place to yourself. So in my case, the person that I live with, they're going on the weekends, like Friday through Monday. And then during the week, they work 9 to 5. So they're either not here and I'm here now because of coronavirus, or I'm at school when, you know, school is back in session. I'm at school all day anyway. So by the time I get home, they have to get up in the morning, and so do I. So it's like, we might cross paths and talk, and very like fluid communication. It's not awkward or anything like that. Like, I feel very, very comfortable. So, you know, it worked out perfectly. So, yeah, I haven't had any issues. Yes, I have. So let's talk about this. Also, make sure that if you're going to do an Airbnb, that you really have some really set foundation of, okay, I'm going to be here this time. If it's an Airbnb, you know, don't list during this time. I'm going to pay for everything, because I actually ended up being homeless for like like all of February and like a little bit of March because of conflicting obligations with other Airbnb people renting the room that I had. So make sure that you are in communication with everybody that is involved with the Airbnb. You know, sometimes they're in partnership with their spouses, and you know, you might be communicating to one person, but they might not be communicating to the other person, and you know, conflict happens with scheduling. So I was literally bouncing back and forth for like a month and a half between this Airbnb and another Airbnb, and I actually was down in Atlanta for like a week and a half with one of my good friends, Tavares, and luckily I had to commute to school once a week. So, but you know, they felt really bad, and they were like, "I'm so sorry. You know, it was a scheduling thing, and you know, let's work it out now." So it was a communication thing. You have to make sure that that's on point. But I haven't had any issues since then. They were like, you know, it's going to be blocked out for you the entire time. So, you know, it besides that little tiff, I haven't had any issues. And, you know, I'll be here until I start clinicals, hopefully, if I can get past the didactic portion, which I will. I'm going to get past. Whew. So, yeah, that's pretty much my living situation. And some of the benefits, like I said, the price is like amazing compared to some of the other places. I don't have to worry about paying for electricity. I don't have to worry about paying for water, trash, HOA, renter's insurance. Those things I don't have to worry about. Internet, I don't have to worry about that kind of thing. So that's one of the benefits of having an Airbnb. Some of the cons, like I said, just that one time, you just really have to make sure that your communication is upfront and it's direct, and you guys get everything to a really good point of understanding as far as what your obligation is, how long you're going to be staying. Make sure all of that is set in stone so you don't run into the issue where you're moving back and forth and trying to find somewhere, you know, to live. Also, another benefit and kind of con is there is no kind of like lease. You can make your own lease, and I would prefer you do it month to month, just in case anything happens. And that's the beauty of it, is you can make those kind of terms to where it fits both of you guys' liking. So I like a month to month kind of lease agreement. So, you know, if something drastic were to happen and change, I'm not responsible for, you know, paying rent for the rest of my lease. And I guess a con would be you really don't own anything, so technically you are homeless and nothing is in your name. I'm not too big on that anyways, because I'm not pressed. I know I won't be living here after school, so hey, it's not in my name, it's not in my name. Big whoop. But some people, they want their own place, so hey, if that's you, then you know the Airbnb option might not be for you. But for me, I love it. And like I said, just to kind of wrap up, word of mouth is probably going to be the best way to find a place. But there are also many websites that I've used, you know, in past. So, you know, websites like Zillow.com, apartmentlist.com, Roomster. If you're interested in getting a roommate, Roomster is an app that, you know, people list their places or list that they're looking for a roommate, and you can, you know, find people and meet people there. Don't sleep on Craigslist. I know Craigslist kind of has this iffy, you know, stereotype around it, but Craigslist, if you do your research, Craigslist can be a gem mine. Like, you can find a lot of things on Craigslist. Facebook Marketplace also has places I think that you can look and find places for rent. Those are pretty much the ways that I would go about finding a place, and you know, the ways that I did go about finding a place to live, and I'm absolutely happy with my choice, and I feel like I saved so much money this way. So, you know, just to give you guys an insight of what I do for a living while I'm in CRNA school, and just to give you maybe some ideas of what you can do if you are kind of in a similar boat to where you're moving far away, you don't really know much about the place, there's no family in the area, you don't want to buy a house necessarily. So yeah, that's what I do. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else to talk about. So let me know in the comments if you know any other websites, or any other ideas that you have as far as finding housing, or any questions that you have. I'm pretty good about answering comments. And yeah, with that being said, I'm out.